Alright guys, welcome to patch 3.0. I'll give you my brief rundown reactions, what we can expect to see with the upcoming patch. So let's take a look at the card updates. Poppy. Alright, so base stats 4 cost 3-3. They're going to a 5 cost 4-4. Has impact at level 2 still. Alright, so they up the cost to 5, so it's a bit slower. And now it's really like a finisher on the first attack. I think that's gonna be the idea. I thought she was okay after the emergency fix. I don't like this change. But we'll have to see. I think this ends up being a buff to Poppy from her current iteration. Scion goes from a 3-6 to a 1-6, and he gets 2 power taken off the top end for both Scion and Scion's return. Makes his finishing power less overwhelmingly strong. But I mean, he's still a really good finisher, right? He hits for 8 overwhelm, then when he dies, he hits for 8 more overwhelm. And rallies. Still pretty good. I think low key, he's secretly sub hidden nerf here. Becomes marginally harder to overwhelm or level up. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So Scion definitely worse, probably still good. Draven Scion won't go anywhere. Gangplank. Base stats to 5-4. Alright, so they already did that. Was already live. Ash, ooh. You have frostbitten 5 enemies, so you frostbitten 4 enemies. Becomes easier to level up. Sometimes it did kind of feel like you were 1 frostbite away, or like 1 turn away from leveling up Ash. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not this will be fast enough. My guess is with all the changes to Bandle City over the last few kind of patches, I'm going to say maybe. And Frostbite might become a natural predator to RE Cannon. So, we'll have to see what goes on there. Trundle goes from a 4-5 to a 4-6. I think this is a revert of a previous edition of Trundle. And I've heard that he was an absolute house as a 4-6 before. So now he goes back to a 4-6. Becomes very, very hard to remove. I definitely think maybe Swain Trundle might start seeing a lot of play with this buff, right? It just gets a lot stronger in the mid game. Anivia gets a health and a power, or sorry, yeah, health and a power. Probably not very relevant. Maybe it lets her finish a turn earlier, but it wasn't so much about when Anivia could finish as much as whether or not they could actually not die on time. So maybe this will just have that Anivia inevitability and a turn earlier, but probably won't change like the win rate of Anivia decks, I don't think. Kindred goes from a 5 cost 4-4 to a 4 cost 4-3. This is a pretty big buff, so she's easier to remove, which is nice. Every challenger unit in the game can kill her, which is sick. But she comes down earlier. If she starts ramping, like if you could level her like on turn 6 and she starts ramping, then things are going to be pretty sick, right? Really strong late gameplay here. Maokai, effect triggers on playing another ally, turns into effect triggers on summoning another ally. But it's only the first time, so you can't do like hyper crazy stuff with like the blades or sand soldiers. Probably just a quality of life change for him. Darius, finally Darius gets buffed, turns into a 6-5. Basically means that he can't be pinged and unblocked, which is kind of cool. Also means that Monster Harpoon can't kill him immediately. Right, so pretty good. Diana, Nightfall, give me a challenger this round to Nightfall, or when you activate another Nightfall, give me a challenger this round. This seems good. Nightfall control or like a mid-range Nightfall, probably not control, but like a mid-range Nightfall, might be around to stay. Getting Challenger every single time you activate a Nightfall, good buff. Xerath goes from a 3-3 to a 3-4. Alright, so he's harder to remove. That's nice, especially because he's relatively easy to level up. Ability now triggers on destroying a landmark and targets enemy units before targeting the Nexus. So now it doesn't have to be only allied landmarks. Doesn't seem too impactful. Bandle City Mayor, your multi-region units cost 2 less to the first multi-region you play. Each round costs 1 less. Excuse me. Bandle City Mayor I think is bad now. I think this was taken from like an S tier card all the way down. Not being able to cheat out 2 units on the same turn early, I think it just makes it pretty poor. It's only saving you 1 mana per round. I don't think it's worth the tempo loss, but we'll have to wait and see. Curious Showfolk goes down to a 4-4. Probably fair, but I think it's an overreaction. Personally, I would have liked to see Curious Showfolk go down to a 4-5, but it at a 4-4, I think is just fine. Probably playable, not nearly as good as it used to be. Now it almost always dies to things like Concerted Strike, whereas before sometimes you'd get away with, or the opponent wouldn't be able to concert it. So we'll have to wait and see what we think on that. I think she's probably still pretty good, but to be fair, only the best Curious Shellfolk players were having success with it. Statistically speaking, Shellfolk decks were very low win rate across the board, except for TF Nami. Lecturing Yordle. When I'm summoned or attack Creative Fleeting Poison Dart in hand, to attack Creative Fleeting Poison Dart in hand. This also makes the Lecturing Yordle quite worse. I think Swain Teemo might just be dead, because it relied so much on this extra Poison Dart. With that being said, so far it's the only nerf that that deck has hit or gotten hit with. So I think Swain Teemo though just might end up being replaced with Swain Trundle. Monster Harpoon. I've been calling for a nerf for Monster Harpoon for quite some time. As a color pie thing, Bilgewater is not supposed to have good removal. It's why Sunk Cost costs 8 mana. However, it says deal 5 to a unit, plunder costs 3 less, and now the plunder makes it cost 2 less. It's now 4 mana deal 5. It's pretty good. It is conditional, but the condition's really easy for its deck to hit. So we'll have to wait and see, but I mean, it makes GP Sedge worse, and to be fair, I don't know if GP Sedge really deserve to be worse. I think they've already done enough to that deck. It That Stairs now will deal 3 to all other units. Instead of 2, this gives kind of the ramp, the Braum ramp decks, or the Asol Zoe ramp decks, a little bit more legs to stand on. Voices of the Old One. Gain 2 empty mana gems for the top 4 cards of your deck. Draw each card that costs 8+. Now it's the top 5. So it lets you draw a little bit more. You might end up burning some cards in your hand, right? Because if you're playing this early, it means you have to be making mana, which means you're not playing cards. Or not many cards, so we'll have to wait and see. Iceborne Legacy going from slow to burst. So like, way back when, Iceborne Spiders with Elise was like pretty sick. The Spiderlings. I'm trying to think now what you might want to play Iceborne Legacy on. Viego's Encroaching Mists and the Mist Wraiths sound pretty interesting. And it's everywhere. So that means you have 4 health Mist Wraiths. Iceborne Legacy might be the real deal here. Rhyme Tusk Shaman goes from a 3-3 to a 3-4. I'd much rather this buff be lowering its mana and lowering its stats, like a 1 mana 1-2. I think would be really cool. But right now, the Rhyme Tusk Shaman, it just isn't doing enough fast enough. If it happened at play and at round start, maybe there's something going on there. But ultimately, I don't think it's very good. Poro Hoarder now works if you behold a Poro. Alright, so like, it's a straight buff, right? Beholding is easier than having one summoned already. And it could fix your bricked hands a bit. But ultimately, it doesn't seem too much of a big deal. Chumpwump going up to a 4-4. Kind of just a value house. Fair stats with an effect. Pretty good. Ruin Rex's effect can now trigger up to 6 times. And he got a buff to his base stats. He's now a 4-4. Cast Can Barrage randomly turn. I'll have to see if like TF slot decks come back. I mean, maybe it sees play. It's just hard. But there's a big deck building cost to Ruin Rex that wasn't there for Riptide Rex. Coral Creatures is now a 1-3. So Coral Creatures is like a really good blocker. But can't block Fearsome, so we'll have to wait and see. Ascended's Rise gets buffed. Goes from 7 cost to 6 cost. So you turn 1. So what? How does it work out now? You turn 1 Sundisk. You turn 2 Pass. Turn 3 Azir. Turn 4 Renekton. Turn 5 Ascended's Rise. Doesn't seem too much better. It does make it a little bit easier to have Rite of Negation backup for Ascended's Rise. So that's cool. Karina Varaza gets a hefty buff. She goes from a 6-6 to an 8-8. So if the effect doesn't win the game, she might afterwards. I like the change. Also an atrocity target now, in a much more meaningful way. Back Alley Barkeep. Whenever someone create a hand, a random card for each Back Alley Barkeep you've summoned this game. I don't like this. This is just random effect RNG. Hope you win. But doesn't seem great. Ooh, Buried Sundusk. Start a game. Summon one of me if all of your cards are Shuriman. This is cool. This plus the Zareth buff might end up being meaningful. Because Azir and Zareth would level up in deck, it's really nice. And now you don't have to waste mana. The biggest weakness to Mono Shurima is that it can't heal. So people would just find a way to just ping away at your Nexus health total until eventually you lose. And one of the reasons why they're able to do that successfully is because of the 1-mana attacks at the very beginning of the game. You couldn't play a Dune Keeper or a Treasure Seeker or anything like that on turn 1. It was almost never the correct thing to do. But with the Buried Sundisk being summoned directly, this is really nice. It also means they're only playing a 39 card deck, which is like somewhat meaningful, right? Vengeance goes to 6 mana, which 6 mana kill thing is super good. I think maybe with this and the Kennen buff and the Trundle buff, I think like SI Control I think is back in a big way. Golden Crushbot is now a mech. Cool. And Hidden Pathways gets nerfed. Hidden Pathways becomes a 6 mana, cost 2. So it's a 4 mana draw 2. That's right on the baseline of efficiency. So before it was absolutely busted. And now it's just really good. It's more late game refill than mid game power now. So like the aggro or aggressive decks might cut it. Or cut a copy of it. Notable things that are missing. Here we have some skins. If you guys are interested in that, I'll kind of scroll through real quick. It's a cool board. Chip. Alright, so a couple things I think are missing from this patch. I thought were going to get hit. I thought it was finally Eye of the Dragon's time. And I thought Wounded White Flame were going to be nerfed. And Pantheon, right? Pantheon and Wounded White Flame, not touched at all. Ken and Ari, not touched at all. So if you were really liking the Ken and Ari Allegiance decks, you could still be playing them to great success now. And not only that, but if you like the Lee Sin style stuff, you could keep doing that as well. With Vengeance getting better, the Pantheon deck might be a little bit worse. But I like that we have a bunch of new toys to play with. The new toys, of course, being Swain, Kindred, Zareth, Monotrema, Copium, and Iceborne Legacy. People are going to be making pretty cool decks with Iceborne Legacy, I am sure. I think Shadow Isles is a big winner from this patch. I think we're going to see a lot more Shadow Isles coming around, both because of the buff of Vengeance and perhaps the cool things you can do with the Iceborne Legacy. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, make sure you hit subscribe. I plan on making at least 2 videos a week. And if you sub, you'll get a notification every time I release a new video. You can also catch me on Twitch. I stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/xstoinut 6 days a week from 8:30 p.m. Eastern time until about midnight. Every day except Thursday. Alright, so I hope to see you there, and I hope you have a great one. Bye.